Brookdale, Pennsylvania was the kind of town where people left their doors unlocked, where neighbors waved from their porches, and where nothing truly bad ever seemed to happen. But on the morning of March 14th, that illusion shattered. Emma Carter was an ordinary 22-year-old, balancing college classes and a part-time job at Beans and Brews, a cozy coffee shop just 2 blocks from campus. She was responsible, punctual, and never the type to disappear without a word. That's why, when she didn't show up for her 8:30 a.m. shift, her manager Denise found it odd. When she didn't answer her phone, it became concerning, and when she didn't return home by nightfall, her roommate Jess knew something was very wrong. Jess paced their shared apartment, dialing Emma's number for what felt like the 100th time, straight to voicemail. It wasn't like her. Even on her busiest days, Emma always checked in. A sinking feeling settled in Jess's stomach as she texted Emma's parents in Pittsburgh. Jess: "Hey, is Emma with you? She didn't come home." "Mrs. Carter: No, why? We haven't heard from her since yesterday." That was all Jess needed to call the police. By the time Detective Ryan Calloway arrived at their apartment, it had been nearly 15 hours since Emma was last seen. That crucial window where missing persons cases were most solvable was slipping away. Jess recounted every detail. The last time she saw Emma, what she had been wearing, her usual morning routine. Security footage from a street camera near the bus stop provided the first clue. At 7:47 a.m., Emma stood there, checking her phone. The bus was due in 3 minutes. But she never got on. Another frame, slightly blurry, showed a dark sedan idling near the curb. Emma seemed to be talking to someone just outside the frame. And then she was gone. No signs of struggle, no clear face to identify, no explanation. It was as if Emma Carter had vanished into thin air. Detective Ryan Calloway had handled missing persons cases before, but something about Emma Carter's disappearance felt different. Most cases had an immediate answer: a fight with a boyfriend, a sudden decision to skip town, or a miscommunication. But Emma had simply vanished, with no warning, no reason, and no trace. The Brookdale Police Department set up a command center, pinning maps and photos on a whiteboard, tracing Emma's last known steps. The grainy surveillance footage showed her at the bus stop, her phone in hand, just before the dark sedan appeared. Then nothing. Her parents arrived that afternoon from Pittsburgh, their faces pale with exhaustion and worry. Her mother, Linda Carter, clutched a recent photo of Emma, her voice trembling. She wouldn't just leave. Someone took her. Detective Calloway didn't dismiss the possibility, but they needed evidence. They started with Emma's inner circle. Jess, her roommate, recounted everything: Emma's routine, her classes, her recent conversations. She wasn't dating anyone seriously, no exes causing trouble. She worked, studied, and texted me stupid memes every night. This isn't like her. Her manager at Beans and Brews confirmed she was reliable and never missed work without calling in. Friends described Emma as cautious, responsible. Nothing suggested she would willingly disappear. Then came the first lead: a witness. Harold Gentry, a retired postman, walked his dog every morning past the bus stop. That morning, he remembered seeing Emma. She was talking to someone, he recalled. A man, I think. Dark hoodie, couldn't see his face. He pointed at the car like he was convincing her of something. Did she look scared? Calloway pressed. Harold hesitated. Not scared. Hesitant, like she wasn't sure. Had Emma known this man? The police released a public notice, urging anyone with information to come forward. Flyers went up, the media picked up the story, but as hours turned to days, hope began to wane. Then, on the third night, Jess's phone buzzed. A text from Emma's number. "I messed up. Don't look for me." The moment Jess saw Emma's name pop up on her phone screen, she felt a surge of relief, only for it to twist into dread as she read the message. "I messed up. Don't look for me." The words didn't sit right. They weren't how Emma spoke, not even in a crisis. And why would she say, "Don't look for me," unless someone was forcing her to? Hands shaking, Jess immediately called the number back. It rang once, twice, then straight to voicemail. She rushed to the police station, where Detective Calloway and his team sprang into action. They traced the message to a cell tower outside Brookdale, near the outskirts of a dense wooded area. By the time officers arrived, the phone was gone. Instead, buried under a thin layer of leaves, they found Emma's real phone, smashed. Someone had destroyed it deliberately, making sure she couldn't use it. Beside it, tire tracks led onto a narrow dirt road. Calloway crouched, running his fingers over the tread pattern. "These are fresh," he muttered. "Whoever had been here had left recently, maybe even after sending the text." The discovery shattered any lingering hope that Emma had left on her own. She was in trouble. Someone had her, and now they were trying to throw the police off her trail. As forensic teams examined the tracks, the FBI was called in to assist with digital forensics. If Emma had been targeted, they needed to know who was behind it, and fast. Meanwhile, Jess couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. That night, as she lay in bed scrolling through old messages from Emma, a car slowed outside her apartment. She peeked through the blinds, a dark, colored sedan. Her breath caught. The same kind of car from the surveillance footage. She grabbed her phone, ready to dial 911, but just as quickly as it had appeared, the car sped off, its taillights disappearing into the night. Somebody wasn't just after Emma. They were making sure no one got too close. And Jess had a terrifying realization. Whoever took Emma wasn't finished yet. The news of Emma's disappearance spread quickly, making headlines across Pennsylvania. Local stations aired interviews with her parents, urging anyone with information to come forward. Flyers with her face were plastered on telephone poles, coffee shop windows, and gas station bulletin boards. That's when Sarah Wilkins called the police. "I need to speak to whoever's handling Emma Carter's case," she told the dispatcher, her voice urgent. "I think I know what happened to her." Detective Calloway met Sarah at the station. She was in her late 20s with dark circles under her eyes and a nervous energy, as if she had spent years carrying a weight too heavy to bear. "My sister, Maddie," she said, placing a photo on the table. "She disappeared in 2018. The details? They're almost exactly the same." Calloway studied the picture. Maddie Wilkins, 19 years old, last seen near a bus stop. Witnesses had reported a dark sedan idling nearby, but no license plate, no clear footage. "She was never found," Sarah continued. "No leads, no body. It was like she just..." Calloway frowned. "And you think her case is connected to Emma's?" Sarah hesitated, then nodded. "Maddie told me about someone she met online. A guy who seemed perfect. They messaged for weeks, but when she finally told me about him, something felt off. He knew things she never posted anywhere. Her class schedule, where she liked to get coffee, even what she was wearing sometimes." Goosebumps crawled up Jess's arms as she listened from the corner of the room. That sounded eerily familiar. Sarah swallowed hard. "Then one day, she said she was going to meet him." She clenched her fists. "She was never seen again." Sarah picked up her cup and took a long sip. The room fell silent. Emma had been messaging someone before she disappeared. A name Jess barely remembered seeing pop up on her phone. Shadow Walker. "I think the same guy took your friend," Sarah whispered. "And if he has her, she's running out of time." Calloway's jaw tightened. If this was the same predator, he wasn't just a kidnapper. He was a hunter, and he'd been doing this for years. The clock was ticking. The pieces were falling into place. Emma Carter wasn't just missing. She had been hunted. With Sarah Wilkins' story in mind, Detective Calloway and the FBI's cybercrime unit turned their focus to Emma's digital life. Every message, every interaction, especially with the mysterious Shadow Walker. What they found sent a chill through the room. The conversations started harmlessly enough. Discussions about favorite bands, upcoming movies, and college stress. But soon, Shadow Walker steered the talks in another direction. You ever feel like disappearing for a while? Sometimes people don't appreciate us until we're gone. And most disturbingly, "I can take you somewhere safe, away from it all, just say the word." The IP address was a dead end, routed through multiple servers to mask the origin. But digital forensic teams weren't giving up. They cross-referenced usernames and dark web activity, searching for patterns. Then they found it. Over the past 6 years, Shadow Walker had interacted with at least 4 other missing women, including Maddie Wilkins. Each time, he vanished after the abductions. No credit card history, no real name. Just a ghost. Until now, a break came from a chilling source, a hidden forum deep in the dark web where users shared coded messages about collecting people. Among the disturbing posts, one caught their eye. Got another one. She hesitated, but she came. No turning back now. The timestamp, the morning Emma disappeared. Jess, still shaken from the strange car outside her apartment, couldn't sit still. She racked her brain for anything Emma had mentioned about the man she'd been talking to. Then, suddenly, it clicked. She said he knew what she wore sometimes, Jess muttered. That means he saw her. He was close. The realization hit Calloway like a freight train. This wasn't just some faceless online predator. This man had been watching Emma in real life. And he could still be watching them now. Within hours, the FBI traced a new IP address, one that hadn't been masked as well as the others. It led them to an abandoned warehouse, 30 miles outside of Brookdale. A SWAT team geared up. If Emma was alive, they had to move. Now, the warehouse was eerily silent as the SWAT team approached, moving with military precision. The massive, weathered building sat abandoned at the edge of an industrial park, hidden behind rows of overgrown trees and rusting fences. To anyone who hadn't been watching, it seemed like just another forgotten structure. But to Detective Calloway and the team, it was the last known place where Emma Carter might be. And they weren't going to wait another second. As they entered, the smell of mold and damp wood filled the air. The team moved quietly, checking each room, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. They could hear the sound of their boots on the dust-covered floor, echoing through the hollow spaces. Calloway's heart raced as he led the way down a narrow hallway. At the end of it, the door to a small, dimly lit room was ajar. Inside, they found her. Emma Carter was sitting on a rickety chair, her hair tangled, her clothes dirty but alive. She looked up, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and relief. When she saw the uniforms, her body tensed. Her mind, still trapped in the nightmare, seemed to momentarily forget that she was safe. "Emma?" Calloway's voice was calm but urgent. Her voice was weak when she responded. I thought you wouldn't find me, that no one would." She coughed, her throat raw. "He said no one would, that I would disappear, like the others." A sense of triumph washed over Calloway as the SWAT team moved in, securing the area. The man who had been holding her captive was nowhere to be found. The room was eerily clean, except for a few disturbing signs. Drawings on the walls, photos of different women, and a stack of journals filled with meticulous notes about each victim. It was clear this wasn't his first time. Emma, still shaking, began to recount her ordeal. Daniel Royce, the man who had been stalking her for weeks, had forced her to stay in the warehouse, manipulating her with promises of protection, telling her that everyone else was lying, that no one cared. She had been too scared to fight back. But now, with Royce nowhere in sight, Emma was free. As the authorities began to process the scene, Calloway took a moment to reflect on the case. There were still unanswered questions. How many other women had fallen victim to this monster? Would they ever find Maddie Wilkins or the others who had disappeared? But one thing was clear: Emma had been found, and her nightmare had ended. For now, that was enough.